But you know what I gave up on? I gave up on manipulation. I gave up on chaos. I gave up on trading my peace for companionship. I gave up compromising my time. I gave up experiencing entitlement and manipulation. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me, because what I didn't give up is my life. What I didn't give up were my boundaries and my standards. And I didn't quit dating because I failed at it. I quit dating because it's no longer a goal or a desire in my life. Welcome to You Have the Power, the road to truth, freedom, and real connection. If you've ever wondered why you keep attracting emotionally unavailable men, questioned your own instincts, or found yourself staying quiet just to keep the peace, you are in the right place. I'm Darla Ridilla, a voice and podcast launch mentor and creator of the Magnetic Connections Pathway. This podcast isn't about fixing yourself, it's about finding your voice. Together, we'll explore what it means to lead yourself through presence, agency, and empowerment, breaking old relationship patterns, building standards with a backbone, and creating relationships rooted in emotional willingness, starting with your relationship with yourself. Because the moment you stop negotiating with yourself and start honoring what you already know, that is where your power begins. Let's get started. I'm glad you joined me today because I think that this podcast is going to evolve into something new and something great. I'm going to share with you something that happened just this weekend. And it kind of started back a couple episodes ago. This is kind of a follow-up or an evolution from that episode, I believe it was 106, called Done Accommodating Men. And I talked about an incident at the boat dock where a man was berating a woman in public for something she had not done. And I observed her apologizing, and I was very disturbed by that. And since that time, it was probably about 3 weeks ago, I've been really trying to figure out what to do with all the emotion that came up, the rage that came up, the hatred that came up, the total repulsion of men. And I really had to sit back and process that. First of all, why did that happen? Why am I feeling this way? What am I going to do with that? There were some realizations that came to me. One of them was I realized that hatred wasn't really directed at all men, because there are some men that I know in my life that are amazing. I have a landlord who's a male, and he's fantastic. I've had some challenges in the time that I've lived here, and he's always been accommodating. He's been kind. He has replied quickly. He's never demonstrated any of the behaviors that I talk about in emotionally unavailable men. There are other men that are acquaintances, or maybe they're husbands of friends, and they are very kind and very nice. So I know that there are good men out there. But I think the majority of men are men children, and they're emotionally unavailable. When I saw this guy berating her, and then the second guy comes along and defends the behavior as quote unquote frustration, that sense of entitlement really disturbed me, because not only had I seen it on the boat dock, but I was seeing it over and over and over again in my dating experiences. In addition to the entitlement, I was seeing a lot of men just intruding into women's spaces, whether it was on social media or it was in my own life. This superiority complex that they have has been a huge turnoff for me. And during that episode, I even said that I was kind of getting tired of looking for a man, of wanting a man. And I was really wanting to have my energy put more into me and building my own life. But at that point, there was still a small crack in the door. I was still open to relationship. I was not actively seeking it. And after I had a couple of weeks to really process my anger and really figure out where it needed to be directed towards, it didn't need to be directed towards all men, but it did need to be directed towards those men children, the emotionally unavailable men, the manipulators, the narcissists, all of those men who are not looking out for women's highest good. And as I went about my day, I would still be open if a man came along and I felt like he might be worth giving him a try just to see what would happen. But this weekend, something changed. And this is not something that just happened on one Friday night with one man. This is something that I think that has been building for almost the 2 years I've been single. When I broke up with my last boyfriend in November of 24, it took me a really long time to really fully get over it. To be honest, I probably didn't get over it till about 3 months ago. It took me a good year and a half to completely process all of those emotions. And during that time, I was still open to dating. After about 6 months, I decided I was ready to dip my toe back in the water. And over again, whether it was an online app or I was meeting some man in person, there would be plenty of men who were interested. That was never the problem. But the problem is they were interested, but they weren't intentional, or they were emotionally immature, or they were emotionally unavailable, or manipulative, or whatever it was. And so, over and over again, over these almost 2 years, not one man made it to the first date. It's been a really disappointing time in my life. There were a lot of false starts, disappointments, and just repeated patterns of behavior that I saw over and over again. And it wasn't that there weren't men interested. What started to happen for me is I really wasn't interested in what they had to offer. I didn't like the experience I was having with them. So I was choosing not to participate. And over that entire time, I followed all of the advice and guidance that's out there for single women on how to find a man. I stayed open. I was very specific about what I wanted. I continued to work on my own personal development and growth. I set my standards and I held them. I vetted men. And while I was doing that, I was still living my own life. I was building a wonderful life without a man. And then after the dating app fiasco, I decided that I would just meet men organically. But still, once again, whether it was online or in person, the result was the same every single time. So, what happened this weekend? It didn't create the decision that I came to, but what it did is it clarified the decision that I was already very seriously thinking about. So, this past Friday night, I went out dancing. I love music. I love dancing. I'm a musician myself. So, whenever I hear really good music, it just moves me. I almost not really go into a trance, but I go into this really happy place. And I can be very outgoing and gregarious as well. And I really had a strong need to really release a lot of stress. I've had a lot of things that have been going on in my life in the past couple of years. And I started a new job about a month ago. And it's been very taxing mentally because I'm learning a new industry and I'm learning new processes at a new company. At some point later in the evening, I noticed that there was an attractive man who was dancing near me, and he started to engage me in conversation off and on. And I was dancing with him. I happened to run into a male acquaintance that I have. We don't hang out per se, but I do run into him sometimes when there's live music, and I love dancing with him too. Anyway, this other guy shows up. He's kind of cute. He's dancing, and we ended up after the music was over, sitting down at a table for a little while and chatting. I was open and hoping he would ask for my number, and he did. And so I gave it to him. And when I did that, I wasn't fantasizing or romanticizing or future faking about what could be, could this be the one? None of those thoughts ran through my head. What ran through my head is, okay, this is interesting. I wonder where it'll go. But what is also interesting, he had asked me about my weekends, how free they were. And I said, well, it's interesting because normally I am very busy. I'm booked up during the weekends, but this particular one, I really don't have a lot going on. And that was kind of due to the weather. There was a high chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon. So I normally will drive long distances to go hiking or paddleboarding with my dog. And I just didn't want to do a 2 or 3 hour drive just to get rained out. And I had done a camping trip the week before. And I think this plays into what ended up being the decision later on. I had done some really intense hikes. I had done some long day trips, and I'd also been on a weekend trip the week before. And I think my body and my mind just needed to rest and just needed to live in the moment for the weekend. So I did say, hey, I'm normally pretty busy, but this weekend is a little different. But what was running around in the back of my mind, even as I'm feeling open to him asking me out on a date, is crap. Here it is. We're in August. It's Colorado. Our summers are about to end. The weather is going to get cold. hopefully we'll get some snow. I only have a few weeks left. First for paddleboarding, your hiking can go on a little bit longer, but I don't want to be thinking about giving up any of my plans, first of all, which I won't, or being on a hike and rushing to get back so I can get showered and be ready for a date. I was really in kind of a conflict inside of my head, while in the moment I was also hopeful and a little excited that, oh gosh, I don't know how I'm going to fit this into my life. One of the key questions that I eventually started to ask myself a day or two later is, why am I so worried about fitting in something into a life that I already love? I already love how I spend my time. So why is this bothering me so much? When I went home that night and early the next morning, there were some things that were kind of nudging at me that didn't feel right. I wanted to walk the line of not giving him too much rein to actually ignore a red flag, but I also didn't want to be too judgmental too quick. There was something that my gut was saying that didn't sit right with me. So while we were dancing, he thought that my male acquaintance was my boyfriend. That was a fair statement to think that. But I clarified immediately, no, that's not my boyfriend. I'm very single. I'm not bothered that he mentioned it the first time, but he mentioned it 2 times more. That rubbed me the wrong way immediately. Like, why are we still talking about this? I told you once, he's not in the picture. Are you jealous? Are you manipulating me? But I was already starting to get uncomfortable. There were a couple of times that I asked him questions and he avoided them. During the conversation, he was talking about what he wanted as far as his dating experience to be. We didn't really get into the nitty gritty of commitment or not. That was going to be the discussion for the first date that I was going to have. But he mentioned that he didn't want to be alone for the rest of his life. And my response was, well, I'd rather not, but I'm actually okay with it if I am. And then suddenly he came around to my perspective, which was weird. I wasn't asking him to agree because, in my opinion, the right answer is the truth, not some form of making it look like we're in solidarity or in alignment when we're not. He had a lot of expectations. What I was starting to see or sense was that he was looking for someone to fit into his life. And I will no longer do that. I used to, but I'm not going to do that. And I really just sat with myself and thought a lot about it. And I thought, well, I really don't know what any of these things mean. They may be nothing, but I decided to note them and to keep them in the back of my mind as I continued to observe his behavior. So later in the morning, I sat down to read a text that I got from him, and I was shocked. He was going to go spend the weekend in a town about an hour away in his camper. And he worded it in a manipulative way. I instantly flashed back to my abusive ex husband, who was a malignant narcissist. While I can't diagnose him in 12 hours, when it was all said and done, I started to get a bad feeling that I was dealing with a narc. I don't know how adventurous you are, but I'm spending the weekend in my camper in this city, and I'd like you to come have a drink with me. I'm not driving an hour away to meet a man I just met hours before. That's not how it works. So my response was that no, I'm going to pass. And then I said, this is a good opportunity for me to be upfront about what my dating expectations are in my town, and that the man initiates plans and pays for the dates. And if we're in alignment on that, that's great. I'd be happy to go out with you. The response that I got really gave me a flashback to my ex-husband for sure. It was defensive. First of all, the beginning of the response, he didn't respect my no. He didn't respect my boundary. I said I was not going to meet him. And then he tried to rework it. I didn't mean that you come and have a drink and drive back. You can get yourself a hotel room. What the fuck? I've known you, what, 12 hours? And you want me to spend money, gas, and time, and God only knows where my dog's going to go, to meet you for a drink and fit into your life? No. My suspicions from the night before were actually starting to materialize right in front of me. And then the second part of the text was actually very defensive, basically defending his position and explaining that he's never made a woman pay. What he missed is I wasn't asking simply for a free meal. That's not what asking a man to pay is really about. What I'm looking for is, do you date with intention and do you have leadership? Do you demonstrate leadership skills in the dating process? That means the initiation, that means the planning. And yes, paying is one part of the three, but it's really a package deal. But he focused right in on the money, and I didn't like his response. And at the time, I just responded that I'm not going to meet you. Have a good time. I'm content to stay in Durango. Looking back, after what unfolded over the next 24 hours for me, I would not have even said that much. If I could go back in time, I just would have done a simple no thanks. And this is where the entitlement comes in. Who the hell does he think he is asking or expecting me to fit into his life? He had no idea I have a podcast and I coach women on breaking patterns with emotionally unavailable men. It was almost like comical to watch. My suspicions were right. So I really gave it a lot of thought the rest of the day on Saturday. And I thought, I don't like how he talked to me in the text. I don't like his response. I don't like his entitlement and expectation that I drop everything and fit into his world. He gave no offer of meeting me in the city we both live in. What is the rush? If you're out of town this weekend, fine, you're out of town. Plan it for another weekend when you're here. I thought this is just the tip of the iceberg, because people supposedly the first 3 months are on good behavior, and this is good behavior, and I'm already pissed. So I decided that night, you know what? I don't think I want to date him at all. I think if I hear from him again, I'm going to say no. And I decided later that evening to go out bar hopping with my dog. And I do this a lot. And we went to a couple of different bars and I just danced on the dance floor with my dog. And as I'm walking back to my car, I remember this feeling of joy of I absolutely love this life I've built. I love that I either go by myself to bars or with my dog, or I go out to whatever it is. I've been going to bars less lately, but whatever it is that I do, I either do it on my own or I incorporate my dog into it. But I love my freedom. I'm so proud of myself for not going today, because 20 years ago, the person I was, I would have been more worried about if I say no, will he still like me? I don't think about those things now. And I remember the peace that I felt. I also felt really proud of myself because I didn't fall into his manipulation trap, which I used to. I said, I absolutely don't want to do this. This is an unreasonable expectation. And saying no, it says a lot about me, but it's not what he defines. What it says about me is that I hold my standards, and no means no. My boundaries are not up for negotiation, and I can be spontaneous. I actually enjoy it, but that doesn't mean that I am required to be spontaneous at that level with a man I just met. So Sunday morning, I wake up, and now I've slept on this whole thing for a couple of nights. And when I talked about the camping trip the weekend before, that was the first camping trip of the season. Because of my crazy work schedule I had earlier in the summer, I wasn't able to get out of town until last week. Every time last summer, I went on a camping trip because I turned my phone off for the entire time and I unplug and I just nap and read a book or do nothing, walk, whatever. I came back with a major epiphany, change, evolution, and I think it happened again. And then you combine the weekend after where I decided to take a mental rest, a physical rest. So my brain had a lot of time to really process and think and evaluate where my life is going. And I think that's why on Sunday morning, I woke up and I thought, this is bigger than me not wanting to go out on a date with this one man. I really don't want to date anyone at all. For almost 2 years, I have hit my head against the wall and gotten the same result. And I have built this amazing life. Somehow, I still had it in my brain that having a man could add to it, which, if you find the right man, that can happen. But I had reached a point where I was no longer interested in looking for that proverbial needle in the haystack. I had created this really awesome, peaceful life. And the whole process of trying to wait or find this man was creating chaos. It was disrupting my peace. I also realized that there's so much advice out there about being on the first date and deciding if you want to go on the second date. But I had come to the realization of I don't want to even go on the first date anymore. I no longer want to put myself out there. I like being alone. I like my freedom. I like that I don't have to compromise when I hike and when I don't. I also realized that it was okay that I decided the day before that I didn't want to go out with him, that I had changed my mind in a 24-hour period. Just because I gave him my number, even if he were to come back in the future, initiate plan, and pay for the date, I'm still not obligated to say yes. The old version of me always needed a reason to say no. I don't need that reason anymore. I simply want to live my life on my terms without a man being part of it. I realized that his interest is not intention. And I saw that pattern over and over again. They can demonstrate interest, but it doesn't mean that they're emotionally available, and it doesn't mean they're right for you. And the old question of does he like me no longer applied, because what I now say is, do I like what I'm experiencing? And not only did I not like what I was experiencing with him, but I didn't like what I was experiencing overall. That the experiences I was having repeatedly no longer motivated me to want to give a man access to me. And so Sunday, I made the decision that I'm not just single on purpose while I wait for the right person. I am now officially single on purpose indefinitely. Dating is out of the picture in my life. If a man were to ask me out, the answer is no. I'm not interested in dating. And I'm really okay with that. I realized too, there's stress involved in if a guy asks you if he can buy you a drink. What do I say? What if he buys me the drink and he's a total schmuck? I don't have to worry about any of that. The answer is no, no matter what the question is. Can I buy you a drink? No. Can I take you on a date? No. There's no decision process going on in my head. There's no conflict. There's no stress. The decision's made, and I am so darn happy with that decision. I felt such a sense of relief, which I didn't expect. There was some grief too. Grief because I had wanted to share my life with someone. And there are days when it's lonely. But I realized that my peace isn't worth trading for a little bit of a band-aid on the loneliness. Because every time I've done it, I've gotten burned and I haven't got what I wanted out of the relationship. And I'm no longer willing to even try to find it. All of that energy and that hope and wondering and looking is invested in me and making this life I've built even better. There were even simple things I noticed yesterday. I was doing the laundry. And so I live in an apartment and I have to walk about 3 buildings down and drag all my stuff down there to the laundry room, lug it up to the second floor. And many, many times over this past year, I've been resentful and grumbling and bitching and angry that I have to do everything alone because there isn't a man in my life. But as I was doing what I do every week, yesterday I realized that I wasn't grumbling anymore, because it isn't that I have to do it by myself. I'm choosing to do it by myself. It was just my perception of it that changed, not the thing I was doing. And of course, there'll be the judgmental people out there. He'll say, you gave up. Like, that's a horrible thing that I gave up on dating. Yeah, I did give up on it. But you know what I gave up on? I gave up on chaos. I gave up on trading my peace for companionship. I gave up compromising my time. I gave up experiencing entitlement and manipulation. That sounds like a pretty good deal to me, because what I didn't give up is my life. What I didn't give up were my boundaries and my standards. And I didn't quit dating because I failed at it. I quit dating because it's no longer a goal or a desire in my life. It pisses me off when men react badly. It's to be expected. This is why I don't want to date in the first place, because so many men are so immature and take my personal decision as a personal attack on them. But what really surprised me was the reaction of a couple of women when I announced this in my personal world. Instead of them really reading my personal post about my decision, instead of really hearing what I was saying, they tried to redirect it, which in turn invalidated what I said. Stupid remarks like, just hold out. God will find the right one for you. It's just coffee. Live in the moment. Be specific on your dating app. Know what you want. The right one will come. But those remarks came across to me as invalidation, judgment, like I was doing something wrong, like I was a problem to be solved. The implication was you haven't tried hard enough. You aren't being specific enough. You're just frustrated and hurt. You're giving up too soon, and something is wrong with you that needs to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with me. I am so clear headed right now, more than I've been in a really long time. Being single is not a problem to solve. It's actually a really rewarding way to live a life, because I'm no longer am I asking that question, how can I find the right man? I'm simply saying I don't want one. And what I don't understand is, why is my personal decision so bothersome to you? Because if you are in a relationship and it's good, I'm happy for you. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I don't want what you have. You may think that that's important in your life, and that's okay. But what I don't like, and I think is inappropriate, is to impose your beliefs and your goals on me. And quite frankly, my personal decisions don't affect you at all. So why are you so bothered by them? And instead of really hearing what I said as a choice, you chose to make it as if I had a problem that needed solved. And what is so wrong with a woman saying, I no longer want to be in a relationship with a man? It seems like society, and women in particular, are more comfortable with a woman saying, I'm just taking a break. I'm healing before I date again. I'm going to wait for the right man. It's in God's timing. Those statements are all about preserving the assumption that partnership is the destination for everyone. My statement is, I don't want a man. That's my destination. But the assumption that I'm less than, or there's something wrong with me because I don't have one and don't want one, is offensive. And what these women don't understand is I'm not broken. I'm happy. I'm peaceful. And it's because I'm no longer running away from something. I'm walking towards something. My personal choice is not an attack on yours. And to the women who are in relationships, I wouldn't go to you and say, oh, give it time. Eventually, you're going to be happy you're single than you are married or in partnership. That would be so inappropriate of me. But that's what these women did to me. I'm also not asking all women to become single permanently like I have. This is a choice I have made. I don't care, ladies, which choice you make. All I ask of you is that you make the choice that's right for you, not what other people think you should be doing. I gave that up a long time ago. I'm no longer interested in accommodating the cultural expectations, the religious expectations, and just the general societal expectations of what defines a woman and what defines her value. Men and women alike need to stop telling women what their lives are supposed to look like. For me, single on purpose is no longer a waiting room for something else. It's about creating even more peace, enjoyment, and joy. Because for years, I thought that partnership was the thing I was missing from my life. But I just came to the realization this weekend that that pursuit of partnership was actually getting in the way and interrupting the peace that I had created. And I realized Saturday night, as I walked back to my car, that the very thing that I wanted was already here. It was right in front of me. I was living it in real time. I have a rich and full life that I no longer have to worry about how dating could possibly dismantle that. My weekends, they belong to me. My energy and my peace are all up to me. So I'm going to spend my time with my dog, hiking, paddleboarding, camping, listening to music, dancing, quiet nights at home, because none of these are the placeholders that I used to have for the man until he arrived. They are all part of the life that I've already built and will be embracing fully. And I'm so glad that I realized that the life I thought I was seeking, I already had and was already living it. And if you're listening to this and you're inspired for one reason or another, and there's this desire for you to use your own voice, whether that's creating your own podcast like I have done, or you're saying my relationships aren't where I want them to be, and I really need to sit down and get straight with myself about what I'm creating and why and how that can change, then I have services for either one of those things. And you can look in the show notes to find out the links to find out more. Women, you are powerful. Whether you're in relationship or not, you are powerful. And you do have the power. And it's time to act like it. Thank you for listening to You Have the Power, the road to truth, freedom, and real connection. Is something stirred in you today? Don't talk yourself out of it. That is how women lose themselves. Not all at once, just one quiet compromise at a time. If the episode challenged you, like it, share it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. The life you want isn't waiting for you to be more confident. It's waiting for you to stop abandoning what you already know. Your voice has been there all along. Now, it's time to trust it.